This is my favourite aerial. This aerial is a RFI CD28-41-70 series monopole antenna. It's end-fed and it's ground plane independent. First thing about this antenna, which I really like, is you don't need a soldering iron to terminate it. The interesting thing with soldering irons, of course, is when you're out in the field, inevitably it's blowing a howling gale or it's bucketing down with rain. And getting a soldering iron to operate in those conditions is difficult at best. Now, the other problem with soldering anything, of course, is inevitably what you're attempting to solder is partially corroded, and that just makes a decent soldering job really difficult. And all you need to do, or the only tools you need to deal with this antenna, is a pair of scissors, a 2.5mm Allen key, a steel ruler, and perhaps a tape measure. The tape measure is really handy for measuring the upper section of this aerial to get that at the right length, and that length is shown on the tuning chart. Now, if you can't get hold of a 2.5mm Allen key, inevitably somebody's got one of these sets. What you can do is you can take this little grub screw right out of here completely, because this thread is 5mm, and if you get yourself a little stainless 5mm machine screw, that can fit in there like that, and then you're not even using an Allen key. You can put a standard screwdriver in there to tighten it up. Anyway, we'll put the Allen key back in there for the moment. If you're passing it through a car wash, the best thing to do is to remove this stainless steel whip portion, and of course what's left on your bonnet is absolutely rugged. You can stick that through a car wash without any difficulty at all. Now if this antenna is actually on a machine, say a forestry loadout machine or something of that nature, and this machine is about to be transported, then what I recommend you do is you actually remove the antenna completely from the base. There's a nut underneath here, and 9 times out of 10 you can grab the upper portion to loosen it. You can undo this nut. The nut itself remains captive on the cable. This antenna base can be laid flat, and then it can be secured with some tape flat onto the outside of the vehicle. Now, the other thing that you can do when you're transporting a machine, because these antennas can be readily terminated and re-terminated as long as you've got the cable, the other thing you can do when you're transporting your machine is you can take this antenna right off of here completely. The nut back onto there. Put this in the cab of the machine, somewhere inside where it won't get lost. That can just live like that until the transportation from one site to the other is completed. And of course, at your new site, you can either re-terminate this if it's getting a little bit ratty on the ends, or just refit the antenna. Push the braid back down over there like that. Nut on there first, nut through here, double check the 70mm, trim it if you need to, and refit the antenna. screw it on until it goes down onto the shoulder. And you'll feel it come up against the shoulder. Replace the nut. These things only need to be finger tight. There's no need to wind them up super tight at all. There you go, job done. And you can re-terminate them in the field quickly and easily. Now, on the other video, you've seen us actually using a stripping tool. Now, you don't need to use a stripping tool. And these can be, by the way, these can be terminated and re-terminated almost continually. I'm just going to use a pair of scissors here and re-terminate this antenna. Now, because of the woven nature of the braid around the outside of this part of the antenna, I'm just going to spread this out. And hopefully the camera's picking all this up. And we're just going to tease the woven nature of the braid apart. Like that. Then we're going to give it a haircut. About 10mm. Give it a 10mm haircut. You don't have to be terribly fussy about the 10mm haircut, but the piece you have to be fussy about, this measurement there. This measurement has to be exactly 70mm, and it's quite critical. In fact, it's that critical I'm going to recheck that measurement. And you can terminate and re-terminate this antenna as many times as you like, as long as you've got enough cable to do it. There you go. And it just seats down on the shoulder inside. Now there's one location where this antenna is not suitable, and that's up on the roof of the vehicle. And the reason why this antenna is not suitable for the roof of the vehicle is that there's no rubber seal in here. I'll just show you that. There's no rubber seal here. So if you put this through the roof of the vehicle, obviously you're going to have to drill a hole. And because there's no rubber seal here, then there's nothing to prevent the water from getting in. Anyway, I don't know quite why you would want to put one of these through the roof of your vehicle anyway, because through the roof of your vehicle you've got a complete ground plane. And when you're in a situation where you've got a complete ground plane, you would use a quarter wave whip rather than one of these. Quarter wave whips are a much simpler antenna. In this location out here in the mudguard, because you have a ground plane over here but you don't have one over here, quarter wave whip is not very efficient at all. In fact, I would say it's actually unsuitable. I wouldn't put a quarter wave in this location, I'd put one of these. This antenna, because it's ground independent, it's not relying on any form of ground plane here. Quite a useful antenna, because in some situations you can actually invert it. So you can take this antenna off, you can mount it upside down, literally like that. So if you've got a machine with a roof overhang or something of that nature, because obviously you need to keep this stainless steel part of the whip away from, you know, a reasonable distance away from the body of the machine, you can actually turn this antenna upside down and mount it through a bracket upside down. The issue that you have when you do that is you need to seal up this cable entry point here. Obviously there's going to be a nut here to hold it onto the bracket when it's inverted. You just need to stop the water from going down that little gap. And this antenna is, in my experience, it's quite happy to be mounted upside down. Works quite well. The important piece is to keep this part of the antenna, when it's upside down, to keep this part of the antenna away from the body of the vehicle. And it's even got an instruction here, up here in actual fact, about the continuity of the antenna, so you can actually do some continuity tests with this antenna with a multimeter. You put your multimeter on the ohms range, there we go. So you will have continuity between there and there when you do your test. You won't have continuity between the center pin, which is in the center of the connector, and this part of the antenna here.